Hey guys, in the last video we worked on creating collision for our cookie and of course creating the cookie itself. So in this video I want to work on creating enemies, and we're going to be working with classes so that we can create multiple enemies. So the first thing that we need to do is create some properties for the enemies. So here I'm going to create, after the cookie properties, I'm going to create enemy properties. And this is going to be enemy width, just like last time when we did the cookie, enemy height, and of course enemy underscore color. And I'm going to set the enemy color to red, and the height is going to be the same as the cookie, which is 20 by 20. Just like that. Now, we're going to need to add a few more things, and that is, actually we might only need to add one more thing, but that is enemy amount. That is the amount of enemies we're going to have on the screen. So I will do 2 for this tutorial. And you can change all of these numbers to however you want if you are following along, but I'm going to set this to 2. Now we need to create some other stuff. And down in our classes section, we're going to create a class. And the class is going to be class, and then enemy, and then we're going to give it pygame.sprite.sprite. And this is the hashtag enemy class. And this is a sprite in Pygame, and I'm kind of new to working with classes, so it's a little bit hard to understand, but this is a class, and a class basically allows you to run it multiple times and kind of have multiple enemies on the screen. It's a little bit complicated. You can find videos for classes all over the internet, all over YouTube. I might end up making a video on it in the future, but for now, you can just look at those other videos. I might even put one in the link in the description. But this is our class. We need to define an init, which is basically what this will do when it starts up, when it initializes. And in these parentheses, we just need to put self, which we need to put really in any definition if we're going to be using self variables and everything. So we'll put self there, and we'll put a comment here, initialize and move to random coordinates. And this will actually run move cookie when we run this. So down here where we ran move cookie first, I'm pretty sure it was here. Yes, we can get rid of this because we don't need it anymore. And when we define cookie X and cookie Y, we can just set that to 0 because that's kind of like a starting location. And it's not actually going to be at 0, 0 when we run the program. It's going to be wherever move cookie decides to put it, because it'll be random. So here in the initialization, we need to put in a few things. We need to give the enemies an X, a Y. We need to give them a dead, which actually the dead is going to be a variable that if it's true, it will kind of close the game. It'll go to the end screen if we ever put in an end screen. It means that we have collided with the player. So we can set the X to 0, we can set the Y to 0, and we can set dead to false, because as far as I know, we haven't collided with the player yet because we've just created an enemy. Now, we now need to create a redo function. So define redo, and then we'll do self like always, and then colon, and then I'll just comment this, move enemy to a random location. And this is going to do basically the same thing as move cookie, but it's going to move the enemy instead of the cookie. So here, inside of here. Also, I'm going to run this in the initialization right after we do dead equals false. So I'll put it right here, and we'll do self.redo. And this will just run redo. So here in redo, we need to put in a few things. One thing is actually, I need to explain this real quick. So what the enemies are going to be doing, and I'll actually show you an example. I'll run the real game here. You can see that the enemies are coming in from different locations. You can see this one just comes up from the bottom. Now it's coming over here. This one's going to the left. They're all coming from different locations, and they're going different locations. So the way we do this is we choose a random number from 1 to 8. And that number is the direction in which these enemies are headed. So this enemy is headed this way, which means it would be 1, 2, actually 1, 2, I think that one's going to hit us. It would be 1, 2, 3. And the way this works is if it's going left, it's 1. If it's going up, it's 2. Right, 3, down 4, and then all the diagonals for the rest, the other 4, which is up, left, up, right, down left, down right. Pretty sure that's how it works. And we'll figure this out, but basically it chooses a random number, it goes in that direction, and then it, depending on which direction it's going, it will choose which side to go on. So if it's going down, oh, that just hit us. Oh, it didn't. Okay. If it's going down, it's going to need to come down from the top. So like this one right here. And if it's going up, it needs to come up from the bottom, which kind of makes sense. But if it's going diagonally, let's say it's going up left, then it's going to need to come from either this side or this side. And in this case, that one's going to hit us. In this case, it's going to choose a random number from 1 to 2. And if it's 1, it'll be this one. If it's 2, it'll be this one. That's how this works. So I'll close this. We need to generate a random number from 1 to 8. And that'll be in redo. And redo basically is whenever they hit the edge of the screen, they have to go back somewhere because they're off the screen. So here in redo, we need to generate a random number. And we can do this by doing self.direction. I'll just do direction because it is the direction. And then equals random.randint 1 through 8. This should generate a random number or a random direction from 1 to 8. And after this, we can start doing that. We can pick a random location based on the direction. So I'll just comment this, random location, if I can spell that right, based on direction. Actually, I'll change this to location based on random direction. Location based on random direction. Like so. And now we can start doing some stuff. So the first thing we need to do is we need to put in some if statements that kind of tell us whether we're going to be coming in from whatever side we're coming in from. So the first one, number 1, is going to be left. And so we can do that if we do if self.dir. By the way, in classes, if we're referring to a variable that we've defined in a class, then we always put in self dot. So self.direction right here is going to be self.direction. It's that simple. So self.direction is going to, if self.direction equals 1. By the way, equals is the same as if it is equal to. So if self.direction is equal to 1, then we run this code, which would be self.x equals width. And what this does is it puts the x to the width, which would be the right side. So if it's going left, it needs to go all the way to the right and If we do this, it'll go off of the screen, just barely off of the screen to the right side. That works perfectly. Now we need to generate a random height now that we're on the right side. So what we do is self.y equals random.randint and then 0 to height. And this will generate a random number from 0 to height. And height is technically not going to work because height would be off of the screen. So we can do height and then subtract enemy underscore height. And that will just subtract the enemy height so that it does not go off of the screen. It's always going to be on the screen. Yeah, so now we have left. Let's copy this for right. Actually, after left we have up. It's kind of going clockwise. So after left is up. So 2, all we need to do is set y to height, like so, and then set width to the random number because we're going to be starting on the bottom, which would be the height because it goes down. So here's the height on the bottom, and then we need to generate a random number for the x along the bottom. So I'll copy this, and then I'll paste it here for width. And instead of height, we're going to be doing width. And we can keep the same subtraction here, except enemy width instead of height. Like so. Now, we can copy both of these and do it again for right and down. So after 2, we have 3, which is going to be right, and then 4, which is down. So let's start with 3. 3 needs to have, 3 is going to be the left side. So instead of width, we can just do 0, and that will actually, there's one problem. When we place this enemy onto the screen, it needs to be off of the screen, and then it will slide onto the screen based on the direction, like you saw in the demonstration I showed you. But when we go to 0, it's going to start on the screen because when we draw rectangles, it draws them and the coordinates are on the top left. So it'll draw it, and 0 is the coordinates are 0. The x coordinate is 0. So the rest of the square is going to be on the screen, the rest of the rectangle. So instead of 0, we need to do 0 minus and then enemy underscore width. So it'll go the width past the edge of the screen. This should work. And then y needs to be just a random number, height, enemy height. That should work just fine. All we need to change is the x. So it goes from here to over here. Now let's do 4. And this is going to be, x should be the same, and then height just needs to be 0, and we'll do the same thing, 0 minus enemy. Instead of width, we'll do height, because we're working with the y coordinates. Right, so now it'll generate a random location from any of these sides, but the problem is we still have diagonals. And so what I'm going to do is copy all of this, and I'll create a new line here, and I'll paste it all in. Now we need to create some new numbers, so we'll do 5, 6, 7, and 8. So now let's think about how we're going to do the diagonals. So after 4, we have 5, and let's say 4 is down, so 5 is going to be, we'll just restart, we'll just go to up left. So 5 is up left. If we want to go up left, then we have to decide whether we're going to use this corner or this corner. The right corner or the right edge or the bottom edge, not corners. This is the corner. And we are using this corner because we're going from this corner, but corner has 2 edges, so we're using the edges. So we need to decide whether we're going to use this edge or this edge. And we can do that by generating another random number. So here's what I'm going to do. If, let's do self.diagonal, sure. If we need to actually, no, we don't need a variable for this actually. We can just do if random.randInt, and then give it some things. We'll just do 1 and 2 because we only need 2 numbers. And then if that is equal to 1 for this one, we will put those in, copy all of this, and I'll just say 1 is the bottom one and 2 is the top one. I'll copy this and paste it down. So this one is going to be 2. Right. Oh, sorry. Actually, we should probably be generating 1 random number instead of 2. So I'll just do else. So if it's 1, then it does this. If it's not 1, it does this. And then for 1, it's going to be the bottom. So self.x needs to be equal to the random. So I'll copy this and paste it here. And then it needs to be width because it's x. And then we need to change it to width here. And that should work. And now self.y needs to be height. And that should be off the screen. Everything should be fine. So now we need to work on the right side. So that will be self.x equals width. That should work. And then self.y is random. So we already have this working just fine for the right side. So now we need to work on 6. So I'll just copy all of this here and I'll paste it in here. So 6 is going to be this diagonal going to the top right. So for number 1, that will be top right, and we need to start from the bottom left because that's the opposite. We're going this way. So we can choose between this edge or this edge. So this edge is 1, this edge is 2. So if it's 1, we're working with this edge. So self.x needs to be self.y needs to be random. So actually, I'll just copy this and paste it here. Self.y needs to be random. Self.x needs to be 0 minus, and then enemy underscore width. So we can make sure that it's off the screen. And now, if it's on the bottom, if we're going from the bottom this way, then it needs to have a random width, a random x, and a y that is off the screen on this side. So I'll copy this, I'll paste it here, and then I'll set this to height. That should make it off the screen. Then these should all be width, like so. Height should be width. So now we have 2 diagonals completed. We just need 2 more. So I'll copy this once again. Actually, I think it'd be smart to copy this one. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. We're going to be editing a lot. So if it's 7, it's going to be going this way. So it's going to be going bottom right. And it's going to go from the top left. So we have 2 edges to work with. We have this one and this one. So this one's 1 and this one's 2. And I'm just doing this because this one's on the left and this one's on the right. And I read from left to right. So left is over here, which would be 1. So if we get 1, then we're working with this edge. So that will give us a random height. So actually, it's probably going to be smart to use this one. Random height here, random height, and we have a random height. And then the x needs to be negative enemy width, all that stuff. So, and actually, I just thought of something. We don't need to do 0 minus. We can actually just do negative enemy width. So I'll just do that. I don't think we need to change anything up there. Actually, we do. Right here. Negative enemy width. Just like that. Yep, okay. So now, let's work on this one again. Self.x needs to be negative enemy width. So it's off the screen on this side. And then self.y needs to be random. Right. So that's 1. 2 is up here. So if self.x is random, that's good. And then self.y does not need to be height. It needs to be negative enemy height so that it's off of the screen. And let's copy this one for the last one. I'm pretty sure this is going to be the right one. The one with minimal changes. I'll paste it here. Right. If random.randint is 1, and by the way, 8 is going to be going this way, I think. No, sorry, 8 is going to be going this way to the bottom left, which means it's going to be coming from the top right, which means we have two edges to work with. That's the top one and the right one. So start with the top one because that's on the left. I mean, kind of, it's on the leftist side. So x needs to be random. Self.y needs to be negative enemy height. So I'll paste that here. And then self.x for this one needs to be width. That's right. And then it needs to be y. It needs to be random. Perfect. We should have all of the directions completed. Now we need to kind of set the move function. So actually, I'm just going to define these ones as diagonals. Probably spelled that wrong. But yeah, now we need to define a move function. Now that we've defined a position, we need to move from that position. So here, I'm going to define move, and then self, and then I'll just comment this, update enemy position. And in here, we need to look at the direction that we've generated. So if self.dir direction is equal to 1, and then we'll do all 8. So we could copy this, all this stuff, but it's okay. We can just type it all out. Actually, we can just copy it all out. So 1, 2, that's an indent. That's going to be a problem. 1, 2, I'll just have to do that. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, we only need 8. I almost counted to 9. Right. Here's 8. Self.dir is equal 1. Now we just need to change this to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Not 18, 8. Right. So now if the self.direction is 1, and then I'll just create that and I'll comment this as diagonals. Okay, sure. Right. Self.dir equals 1. This is going to be when it's going from the right, I believe. If it's going from the right to the left. Let me double check that. It's going from the right. Yep, that's right. So if it's going from the right, then we need to do self.x minus equals enemy speed. I don't know if we defined enemy speed up here, but that's what we're going to be using. Enemy speed. I'm going to need that here. Enemy speed. And that's just the speed at which the enemies move. And I'll set that to 1. Right. So we have enemy speed here, and it's going to be subtracting because we're going left. So 2 is going to be going up, and 3 is going to be going right. So I'll just put 3 here, and we'll add, and then I'll do the y's now. So that's going to be 2, no slash, right, this just needs to be y. If we're going up, because that's 2 is going up, that needs to be subtracting enemy speed. And then I'll copy this and paste it down here. This is going to be subtracting from actually adding to the y, like so. Now we have to do the diagonals. We've done all of the straight, vertical, horizontal. Now we need to do diagonal. So 5 is going to be going up, left. So we need to go both. We need to change both the x and the y. So up left is going to be going left and then up. So up is going to be 2, I believe. Up left. and I'll just comment this up, left. And I'll comment all of these actually. Up, left. No, I want to comment all of these, not delete all the comments. Right. Up, left, up, left, up, left. I'll have to change these. So up, left. Then 6 is going to be up, right, I believe. And then this is going to be down, left, and down, right. And just downright simple. Haha. Alright, now we need to copy these and paste them in here. So we are doing, if we're going upright, we need to add to the x and still subtract from the y. Upright, and then copy that again, paste it here. Now we're going down left, so we need to subtract from the x and add to the y. And then down right should just be adding to both. Like so. There we go. Now we have the diagonals for the movement, and I'm pretty sure that's it for now. The one problem is that we don't have a function. So when we start the program and we get them all, we get all the classes to work, they're gonna go off the screen and they're not gonna come back, and that's because we're not detecting if they're actually on the screen. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna write a piece of code that checks if they're on the screen, and if they're not on the screen, then it's going to redo everything and make sure that they are on the screen. So I'll just comment this, check if on screen. Then if self.x is greater than width, the width of the screen, or self.x plus enemy width is less than 0, or self.y is greater than height, or self.y plus enemy underscore height is less than 0. So this will check if the enemy is on the screen or if it's not on the screen. If it's not on the screen, this will execute, and we will just run self.redo, which will just run all this code again. Sorry, not the move code, all of this code, which will generate yet another random number from 1 to 8, and then choose a direction and a location. So yeah, this should work. We just need to figure out a way to run all of these classes. And I had a little bit of trouble with this, but here's how we're going to do it. Right before we start our game loop, we need to create a list. So right here in the initialization, we need to, what is it? Well, I need a word for this. Spawn enemies. That'll work. Spawn enemies. And then here we need to create a list, and this is going to be called enemies. And a list is defined with 2 brackets that look square brackets. And after this, we need to write a little bit of code that is a for loop. Now, a for loop looks like this: for I in range, then we'll do max enemies. Actually, that's what I had in my first game. I'm not exactly sure what we called this. What did we call this? It was enemy amount instead of max enemies. Max enemies doesn't really make sense because there really is no maximum. It's really just there's a maximum, but it's really just the only amount. It's not like, yeah, I'll just put that in there. Yeah. So in this for loop, the way a for loop works is it will add to I every time it loops through. And in this case, I is going to be ranging from 0 to enemy amount. And so in this for loop, we can kind of use I. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do enemies.append and then the class enemy. And what this will do is it will execute enemy, and put it in the enemies list so that we have exactly the amount of enemies that we want. In this case, I have 2 enemies, and you can really change that to whatever you want. So this should, in theory, create the enemies. The only problem is that we're not drawing the enemies, and I think in my last one, yes, I had a function in the enemies that was, let me look here. Yes, we had a few functions, and that was here. We can do define draw. I had a draw function. So draw self, and then what this will do is it will just draw a rectangle. So pygame.draw.rect, and then screen, and then enemy color. So that's the screen and the color of the enemy, and then our tuple, which is self.x, self.y. There we go. And then enemy width, and of course enemy height. Right, there we go. We have everything here for the draw function. Simple as that. That's the draw function done. And after this, we just need to do a collision function, and we'll do this later, right after we test this all, because I'm not sure exactly if these enemies are going to work yet. So here in our main loop, I'm in the main loop now. You can see here the actual while loop. I'm going to do a few things. So in the while loop, in the detect section, we're going to in the let me look here. In the update section, I think. Yes. In the update section here, we'll just put this at the end. At the very, very end, we need to put in another for loop. For I in enemies. And this is for all the enemies that we've created. And this needs to kind of run what the enemies are going to be doing. So they're going to be moving. So I.move. And by the way, you might notice that for I in enemies is not a range anymore. It's a list. So instead of I being a number in between a range, it's going to be what's the actual item in the list. So it would be enemy.move. And it'll be the specific enemy that we created before we started the while loop. So it'd be I.move, which would move that specific enemy. Then I.detect, which we haven't actually created yet. Detect. And that's, I'll implement that after we test everything. So I'll comment that out for now. And then after that is if I.dead. And this is the variable that we created that will check if the player is dead. And I think I created that. Sorry, it's just a variable. Yeah. You can see it right here. Dead equals false. And I actually need to make that self.dead. It probably doesn't matter. I'll make all this stuff self.x, self.y. Right, that should work. Now down here again, if I.dead, which means if it is true, if we are dead, if dead, exit program. And yeah, we don't have an end screen right now, so we'll just do pygame.quit, and then of course system.exit. Awesome. Now I'm pretty sure all we need to do now is actually draw the enemy. So I had this here for testing. We don't need that. For I in enemies, once again, we're doing that again because we need to draw the enemy. And we're going to do that after, in our draw section. So let's comment this, draw enemies. And then in here, we just need to do I.draw. And then, of course, the little brackets, parentheses. So, in theory, this should work. So I'll run it. Invalid syntax. Of course, we did forget a colon there. That should be fine. Right, let's try this again. Here we go. We get a blank screen. We have an error. Enemy has no attribute move. Let's see. Did we forget to run the move function, or did we misspell something? Move. Define move self. We might have an error near this as well. So this is updating the enemy position, and our error was, I shouldn't have done that. Okay, I'm find that again. I have so many Pygame windows, Python windows. Should be this one, yes. And then we'll need the shell. Where's the shell? Where's my, here we go, shell. Enemy has no attribute move. What line is this? I.move. It should have an attribute move. It's giving us an attribute error. So in line 250, where's 250? I'm just looking here in the bottom right corner. 250. Here we go. I.move. Apparently, move is not a thing yet. That is a problem. I'm not exactly sure. Actually, because I'm right here, I'll just do update enemy. Why not? Right. So I.move, it thinks that's not even a thing. So up in our enemy, where is it? Here, we do have a move function. It's right here. But apparently, it doesn't see that somehow. So let's check. Is there an error near this area? I don't think so. Did we forget anything? Move. This one. It looks fine to me. Define. Oh, I know what we did. It's not on the right line. And you can see that it's on the same line as this if statement. So all we need to do is move it back a bit, and then we'll have to move all of this back. I think I can do Shift Tab. No, that goes Control Tab. No, those all go back. What about Alt Tab? Oh, that just opens all my windows. Right. Let's try just using that. It'll be okay. Okay. It'll take just a bit, and I did something wrong here. There we go. Right. We'll have to do that for all the diagonals as well. You know what? I'll come back to you as soon as I'm done with this. We should have everything done now. Let's run it and see. We don't actually have everything done, but you can see there are two enemies here. They don't have collision, but you can see that they are working. They go off the screen and they come back. That is exactly what I wanted. And we had minimal errors. That's like never happened before. Anyway, we got it first try. We now need to add collision, just like we added collision to these cookies. And this is going to be pretty simple. The only thing that we might need to worry about is that we can't add collision in the main loop. We have to add it in for each different enemy, because they're using classes. So let's try to get this to work over here. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to define a detect function. So define detect. And this is going to have self colon. Actually, parentheses colon. This is going to detect enemy collision. I don't know if I spelled that right. Who cares? Right. Now this is only going to have a few things. Now, we actually do need to have let's see here. We need to have some things that define the middle or the center and the distance. So here we go. Self.middle equals self.x plus enemy underscore width divided by 2, comma, self.y. Actually, I'm doing this in a different way. I'm going to do self.middle x and, of course, self.middle y, because that's what I'm doing in this tutorial. Self.y plus enemy height. Spell that right. I keep spelling height wrong. All right. And then we also need to have... Actually, that's all we need to have. That's it. All right. Now we need to find a distance between the player. So this is going to be do a new line, self.distance x and self.distance y. And then this x is going to be equal to, and it should be the same as self.middle x, and we need to subtract, let's see. Yeah, we need to subtract the enemy width as well. We need to divide that by 2, as well as the player width divided by 2. And I'll just put these in parentheses. Here, not 9, parentheses, and parentheses. There we go. So this is in parentheses, and this is in parentheses, and then they're all in parentheses as well. Right, so that's the distance for the x. Now we just need to do distance for y. Self.middle y, and enemy height rather than width, and then player height rather than width. And yeah, that is it for the distance. Now we just need to have an if statement. If self dot I forgot one thing. This needs to be the absolute value of everything. ABS. That should work. Wait, no, sorry. Not the absolute value of everything, I don't think. Let me look at this. Self.middle x, enemy width plus, right. Actually, I think it is the absolute value of everything, because it's the middle minus, yeah. I think it is the absolute value of everything. So this needs to have, yeah, I think that's good. And then this one needs to have another, yeah, okay. Now we should have the distances. If self.distance x is less than or equal to 0, and self.distance y is less than or equal to 0. So this should check the collision between the player and the enemy. And if they are touching each other, then we need to do dead. I think it's self.dead equals true. There we go. And I need to capitalize true. Make sure you always capitalize your true and false. And yeah, this should work just fine. Let's try it. We're probably going to have an error. Oh, we don't. Right. Let's just collide with an enemy. Oh, that's very disappointing. What is the error that we have? Let's look through our code. Actually, let's do a little bit more testing. So I think we might have just an error because we can just go right through these. No. Oh, I know what I did wrong. Oh. We need to subtract the middle from the middle. So instead of doing this, we were really close. We need to do self.middle x minus, and then the middle of the player, which is player underscore center, I believe. And actually, because, yeah, we didn't change these to centers either. I need to add, I think, no, I think we're fine. Yeah, I think we're fine. Yeah, I need to change these to center, because that is more proper. Oops. Right. Copy that. Paste it here. Alright, this tutorial is getting really, really long, and I'm getting tired. So we might have to end it here soon. But I really want to finish this. So, center. Where is our middles? Center. Change this to center. Center. Okay. all the middles should be center. Now let's just add our last player underscore center. Right. There we go. And then this one should line up. Yes. Okay, our parentheses are fine. Now, let's look at this. Absolute value of, right, okay, we have a problem already. This needs to be the absolute value of this. So that should, whoops, that should be positive or 0. No, it should be positive whatsoever. Then after subtracting this stuff, it could be 0. So we need to get rid of one of these parentheses because, yeah, that's going to be a problem. It gives us a sound. Windows gives us a sound. So this should work, I think. Let's test it out and see if it works. No errors. Now let's just run into one of these. Run into... disappointed again. What is our error? I thought we fixed it. Okay, let's look at the centers. Self.x plus enemy width divided by 2. These look fine. I don't think it's the centers. I think it's our distances. So the distance is the absolute value of self.centerx and player center x and y. That might have been what I was missing. And when we define player center, yeah, okay. That was our problem. And also, we're never even actually going through detect. I just noticed that. We never actually uncommented that. Let's try it again. Otherwise, it would have given us an error that that variable didn't exist. Yes! Yes, we have collision! We have proper collision, yes! Yes, yes! I'm so happy! Right, we can actually play our game now. Now, in the next video, we'll probably do a little bit of cleanup. We'll work on creating a score, and we might change some of the variables around, and yeah, we now have collision! Yay! Right, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, just, yeah, anyway, yeah, I'll see you later, bye. I need to go to bed.